Seldom have I come across a more outrageous example of police overreach than what occurred at a Mississauga, Ontario beer store earlier this month. So folks, here's the skinny. As reported by Michelle Mandel in the Toronto Sun, 70-year-old Art Lighttowler says he was pulled over by a police officer for the first time in about a half a century worth of driving. Hey, I guess there's a first time for everything, right? And even the most experienced driver can make a mistake. So was Art speeding? Nope. And he certainly wasn't guilty of distracted driving, given that he doesn't even own a cell phone. So when the unnamed officer, let's just call him Sergeant Stadenko, approached the car, Art was most curious what sort of traffic infraction he had allegedly committed. Would you believe impaired driving? Well, kinda, perhaps, maybe. Now, I'm not making this up, folks, but apparently the police officer had been staking out the local beer store, and he had duly observed that Art had just returned an excessive amount of empties to that beer store. Well, one needn't be blessed with the detective acumen of Sherlock Holmes to crack this case, right? Lots of empty beverage alcohol containers obviously means the person returning the containers is a drunkard. What else could it mean? Only drunk drivers return empty beer bottles, right? You know, I would have loved to have heard that conversation play out with dispatch. Stadenko here, we got a code 24 in progress. Observing suspect Mr. X, approximately 70 years old, currently entering a beer store. Suspect is returning an inordinate number of empty bottles. Dispatch here, go on. Stadenko, this sounds interesting. How many bottles is Mr. X returning exactly? Precisely 3 cases of beer bottles and 8 wine bottles. Good God, Stadenko, that adds up to, let's see now, 80 empties. Do you need backup? Jeez. And so it was that after Art Lighttowler exited the plaza, he was pulled over and requested to provide a breath sample. Art planned to refuse until he was informed that doing so would result in an automatic fine of $2,000, a considerably higher sum than Art earned from returning those empties, namely $8.80. Needless to say, Art passed his breathalyzer test, but he kind of felt stripped of his personal liberties in the process. But here's the deal. Until last month, police had to have a reasonable suspicion to support a request for a roadside breath sample. For example, bad driving, the smell of alcohol, or visual signs of impairment, such as glassy eyes. Not now. Under changes to the criminal code passed by the federal Liberals, police across Canada are now allowed to randomly stop and administer roadside alcohol breath tests on any driver, even without a reason to suspect that the person has been drinking. And apparently that includes someone flaunting their alleged liquor consumption by returning an inordinate number of empties for refund to a beer store. Look, like most reasonable people, I would assume, I want drunks off the road, and I want them locked up for as long as possible. But what occurred to Mr. Lighttowler was a complete abuse of process, one that followed a logic process that I'd referred to as being moronic, except that I don't want to insult the moron community. Police have been entrusted with new powers thanks to this legislation. They need to use these powers wisely as opposed to losing the public trust by jumping to preposterous conclusions. For the Rebel.media, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies. Hey folks, Rebel has a new app. Please download that app and take the Rebel with you wherever you go.